Familia, this is the second part of Loving DJ Caring for a Special Needs Son.
Wondering in this painful journey that you like had deconstructed, reconstructed. Was there an operating metaphor that you say, ahora yo siento Dios en esta manera? I didn't before, but I do now. In personal shift, is there something you'd like to share with us as how you see God or transact God now?
Yeah, well, I mean, to go back to what you said, like that shift that Hiram was mentioning, like, okay, he didn't heal my son, but he healed our marriage. And I think again, this happens in our Christian community, that there's like categories of where we see God big, that this is a big God. He healed, but we don't give the same level of importance or victory or glory when he heals a marriage. You know,
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
so like Hiram was saying, the little miracles. We started to say, the song, by Maverick City about miracles.
Mm-mm.
We kept playing that, and we were like, you know what? We have to be able to see the little miracles. Like we have to be people that are not looking like for the big explosions and the big "Yo soy Dios," but the small voice, the little miracles that throughout our journey that we see. And for us, that was it. Like, yes, he healed our marriage, and I testify to that too. Like, gosh, like it had to be God, because I know myself. You know what I'm saying? I know myself, you know what I mean? And that was God, all God. So to me, I feel like if we could learn to look at life, because it really, God is everywhere. When you are open to it, you see God in so many things that
Yeah.
we are so blinded to, because we only want to see the big things. And I think God works more in the little things than the big things.
Yeah, and just to add to that, David, um, there's a sense of peace that I've had in the past, I would say 3 or 4 years about my son. I would say the last 3 years with COVID, that I just feel this peace that I know God is in control. I mean, there's a peace there, I want to give you a little uh, story of a miracle that I didn't see it that it was going to be a miracle, but it turned out to be a miracle. And I'll give you an example. I live 5 minutes from Miramar Memorial. That's where we take DJ. 5 minutes from my house. Everything's done there. We do it there. I'm 5 minutes. Liz comes see me. She's 5 minutes away. This last one, they had to transfer him to another hospital, same hospital, but at the regional, which is about 47 minutes away from my house. Now, trying to fast track this. So now I was upset. I was like, gotta be kidding me. This is the hospital. You can't do this here, like that. No. So there's a specialty. But now, little caveat here. He's hard time to get a vein. Heart stick, they can't get a vein. This hospital is like afraid to touch him. His veins are like spider webs, very thin. So they can never really find a vein. And when they find a vein, it won't last long. And then they tried there's different options to get a vein. This hospital says there's no way that we can get a vein here. This is going to be hard. So we were worried about that because he needs his medicine. He needs IV if he's in a hospital. So then when they told us about his neurological issue that happened here, the 45 seizures in one day, 35 the next, so we took him to the hospital. They have a specialty of a neurology that they deal with this. So they're going to transfer him. I was upset then, but I was at peace, David. You know what I'm saying? I was at peace.
Mm.
So then we get there, and here's the miracle. We get there, they're doing the specialty. There's their IRT, which does the lines. He saw all the x-rays from this hospital, and there's one doctor says, I see something up here on his neck. Let me do something here, and if we can do it there, I can find a PIC line. Well, long story short, that doctor got a line where this hospital couldn't get a line. So you see the miracle? I hated the 47-minute ride that I got to be away, and my wife has to drive to come see me. But he had the specialty taking care of him. They found a line. He still has the line now that they couldn't find before. And again, little miracles. But even in that journey, David, I had this peace inside of me. And I think that peace just keeps growing more and more as day by day. You know what I mean? So those little miracles, and there's a whole bunch of other little miracles because Liz, I'm gonna add the service when we got there. Not only did he had a private room I never had a private room in this hospital. I had a hospital bed to sleep on, not in those little couches that turns into a bed. This hospital never have it. They brought in a mini refrigerator and a mini microwave to my room. Who does that? Who does that? Again, little mini miracles that happen. So just to give you to end this story, that's a major miracle, but that's big for us. But I saw God's hand there. But even in that journey from this hospital to that hospital, I had the peace. He's in God's hands. It is what it is.
Mm,
Yes.
yeah. Mm.
Thank you, Hiram and Liz. You know, you've been mentioning the journey, right, with DJ, and we all understand it wasn't one time event, right? It's something that is continuous in your life, and the last few years, you I think you touched on this that there's been difficulty. There's been difficulty, frequent hospitalizations, having to deal with occurrences, things that would be happening. How have you dealt with that? I think you began speaking about roles and things like that. How have you dealt with taking care of DJ, and how has it impacted your marriage, your life? What are some takeaways from that?
Is that question for me or for both or for her first?
Both of you is fine. Yeah, both of you,
Well,
for sure.
with me, it's a good question in the sense of I think I just go into I got to get this done mode. I got to do this. It's got to get taken care of. This year, I never had to keep a maleta prepared ever, right, babe? Now I keep a maleta with clothes ready because in case I go, I'm not going to be looking for my stuff and all that. But I just go into that mode of just it's got to get done. God's going to give me the strength to do it, and we just take it day by day. I mean, I really maybe want to tap into that, but that's the only thing I could think of. I just do what I got to do, take it day by day, and he gives me the strength.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's it. I mean, you have to. We have to embrace this journey, and we're not looking for an out or that bow even. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because this is the journey that we have accepted it. And what has been the most challenging thing throughout this whole time is the whole exhaustion part, while you still have to show up to do whatever it is that we do. And we had to make a hard decision, which was, okay, Hiram has to stop working so that he could be around to, because think about this: before, he was working, and at night he would have to suction him a few times a night. And the reason for that is because I've had, hernia surgery. I can't lift him. I can't lift more than 10 pounds. So we made the decision, okay, looking at everything, looking at our finances, looking at who is doing what. And we said, okay, right now in this stage of our life, you can step back in this role, and step into this one. And that was hard too, because of course, there's financial challenges, right?
Right.
We don't bring as much money in as we used to when there's two people working. But we were like, can we do without some of the want tos, so that we can get to the things that need to happen, because having, being up all night, every
Right.
every 1 or 2 hours is exhausting, to have to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And also, trying to figure out, like, okay, what do I tell my boss? Oh, I'm sorry, got to be in the hospital. One time he was in the hospital for almost a month,
Yep.
and that job, thankfully, made some arrangements for him to have family leave. But not every employer is going to be as good with that as some are. So I think that was the hardest part for us, and also being able to um, just kind of go with the flow, and not be bitter, because again, that's one of my biggest things that I've told you guys. I've told, I don't want to be bitter. I think being bitter will just suck everything around from everybody around me. So I just we laugh a lot in this house. As you know, my husband's a comedian, and he keeps us laughing. And we do this community show, So every month we're bringing joy and laughter to the community, and we're also partaking in that. So we just keep joy and laughter at a premium here. You know, looking
Yeah.
at
Mhm.
good things, looking for the miracles, and just kind of embracing life the way it goes. I think when you kind of like let go and let God for real,
Mm.
you can make it through. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have any pain. It doesn't mean that you don't have any tears. It
Right.
doesn't mean that you still don't go, pero Dios, por favor, give us a break. It doesn't mean that we don't do any of that. But while we're doing that, we're saying, God, but we trust you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Powerful.
and because we have a few of those por favor, Dio. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, come on. Again, come on. But yeah, we trust you. And to go back a little bit, you mentioned about the marriage. We just try our best to not mess this up. You know what I mean? Because I'll give you an example. Because of the now he's doing better. But I had to sleep with my son. I have a cot next to my son. Now his room is right next to our bedroom.
Mhm.
That's why we got this house. So he's right next to us. But all the suctioning, and he's never in the 20, he's 22, so the 21 years, right, babe? Well, 20 years, he never needed oxygen. All of a sudden, now he needs oxygen. Now it's as needed, but the last year or so, it was nonstop that he needed to have oxygen at night. And listen, so it was draining, and I had to sleep on a cot next to my son because I had to suction him, put on the oxygen machine, check his pulse, check his heart rate. It's almost like I'm a mini nurse.
It was like a hospital.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and yeah, and we have a room like a hospital room. We have a suction machine, the nebulizer. So it was just like, and it was every hour or every 2 hours that I had to get up, so I couldn't continue working in that capacity to get up in the morning. And I was on the phones, you know what I mean. So it just didn't work out. But I know God's going to provide and make a way. But with us, we communicate more. We make sure that we're taken care of. We make sure that we make our times. We have our date nights. We have our moments together that we need to be alone. But it's just we just both make that decision, and we definitely listen. Uh, this house of ours here, this family has survived because of laughter as well. Not just God, but laughter. Man, I can't tell
Mhm.
you that. I don't think we don't laugh. There's a day that we don't laugh. I have to say that, right, baby? It's like I'm doing something, or my wife's doing. My son, even DJ has made us laugh because we speak for him. We talk. We put his voices to him, and we just create a character with him. But we just laugh. There's so much joy in this house that I really believe that that's the peace, and I believe that's God, and
Mhm.
that's how we're handling it, because this can destroy a marriage. 80%, right? 80% of marriages, people with special needs have divorce. So you know, um, yeah. So that's how we're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you're an inspiration to us,
Absolutely.
to many. Your disposition, and you're real about it. It's not like, oh yeah, this is we're carrying on through the power of God. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
power of God means a lot of things. It means the
Mm-hmm.
laughter. It means the
Mm-hmm.
wisdom to know
Mhm.
how to shift, right? That this is the time now we're going to concentrate a little bit on DJ, like Hiram, you're doing, and Dr. Liz. Also, what time do I pitch in, and having that teamwork? That's all God. It's not like this is a lift that you're not involved with, but God is in there with you. That's God, and you're having the fullness of your life. One of the things we enjoy is the time that we have with you, and
Yes, they do.
how to have a good time, love the Lord, have a good time, and carry on. And so, again, we commend you. And also, I think the fact that you've seen your calling and you have not shunned away from it. And legitimately, some people, that's their journey, that this is what they're going to do. In your case, you say, no, we're called, and we have something to give to the kingdom, something to give to the world, the laughter, the ministry. This is part of our journey. And something, what we have with DJ is important, but it's part of our journey,
Right.
right? It's also part of our journey. And
Mhm.
that fullness of life is a gift that you give to people. And so we want to thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing. Dave had something he wanted to speak about for a moment there.
No, I am. both I marvel and I am so inspired by both of you, and the grace of which you live your lives. And I had a interest, I just a question I wanted to explore, and again, if you're comfortable with, and it had to do around humor. Yeah. So, and it's this, and, as much as I know Hiram, you're a man of joy and an emotional man who loves your family dearly, and you have this ministry of humor. So one can even go into this trying to find out a theology of humor.
Mm,
That's how profound. The nature of God laughing. The whole Isaac story, and
mhm,
it's very fascinating. Now, I wanted to ask, because of the nature of what has happened, that how would you describe the humor for you? Was it strength and resource? I got this resource, and I needed this. Thank God I have this in my soul, and it enabled me to it was the gifting how God designed me, and that was a blessing. Was it a form of coping?
mhm.
I say, hey man, I need this because esto está difícil, and it was a coping. Or, and this is the other, a little more difficult, was it also a place of hiding? Where
Mm.
was, were you able to hide in humor? So I just want to throw that up,
No, that's
because
good.
there's a lot of people who struggle, and then some people actually use that as. So I
Sure.
want to just ask you honestly, how was that for you?
Yeah. So let's go with. I think it's a little bit of everything. A little bit of coping, a little bit of hiding, and a little bit of who I am. So I grew up as the baby of the house. I have four sisters and an older brother. The older
Mhm.
brother passed away, so I was the baby of the house. But I always had this the spirit of the charlatan. You know what I mean? I was always in public school, junior high school, high school. I was always the class clown. I was always the vocal one. In my background, I've been playing as a musician since the age of 12. My dad got me a pair of timbales. So I've been playing since I was 12. So I'm an entertainer. So that's one. I'm an entertainer. I'm a musician. But I've always liked comedy. I've always liked making people laugh. I've always did it for my family. And then years later, I started just bringing my humor into my sermons. I just started throwing my stories into my sermons. And that became, like every sermon I had to find a little nugget of humor in there. And if I don't have it, I don't have it. But the majority of the time, or an illustration, I always had to bring humor in there. So I've always been that way. So I'll say that I think I have that in my spirit. I was just charlatan, a funny guy, and always been that way. And then in this journey, brought it to my preachings. And I believe when the Trump era came, that my wife and I, we just saw a lot of hatred out there, a lot of sadness, especially in Florida. You know what I mean? So I mean, I know it was everywhere, but especially in Florida, it was just so much this the racism, and it was just so many things happening that um a restaurant that we frequent, we just, hey man, would you consider doing a show here? Let's do a comedy show, and the guy said yes, okay, let's try. We had to they have a back room, and we sold it out, and the owner said, hey, take the whole restaurant the next time. And it's been 3 years, and it's called the West Pines Comedy Room, and part of the Passion Center, and we're bringing laughter to the community. So I'm the community pastor, and it's been 3 years, but I really believe it's been a healing for me, even doing it. But I've also seen people who come up to us who are not Christian or who don't go to church, whatever. They'll come up to us and says, "Thank you. I needed this tonight." People who I know, even in the gay community, come up to us and say, "I needed this. I needed this tonight." And so I just felt, we both felt that let's just start bringing this, let's turn this place around with the joy and laughter. And it became, now that's what we're doing. They're just bringing laughter to the community. 3 years, we're doing it 3 years. In March, we made 3 years doing this. Now, the coping part, I think I think everybody has a little bit of coping. I'm a comedian. I've always loved doing that. So I believe it was a coping. That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit of everything. Now, the hiding part, I'm trying to dissect that, David. I don't think I was hiding, but I think I was. what I'm trying to figure out. I don't think I was hiding, but I think I was ignoring. I don't know. Can ignoring and hiding be the same thing? I guess it is the same.
It's
I don't know.
different, but I could
But
see
you
where
get
it
what
could
I'm saying?
converge.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
almost like I'm just going to ignore this part right here and just keep doing what I got to do. I think a little bit of everything, all three parts. But that's how I got into this, and right now that's what I'm doing. Listen, I miss preaching. Don't get me wrong, I miss preaching. But at this journey in my life, as a former associate pastor and a former church planter, I'm okay. I'm okay now. You know what I'm saying? I have no, like, oh my God, I want to be in ministry. I want to do this. I want to pastor. I'm okay where I'm at right now, and I feel good. And the journey I'm in right now is taking care of my son and my family the best I can.
I just want to jump on that because you see how his theology a little bit came out right there. I don't want to be, I don't. You are in ministry, bro.
Well,
Come
what
on.
I'm trying,
You
all right,
taking care of your family. You
Yes.
taking care of the community. So I think again,
Yep.
it's our concept
right,
of ministry and
right, 100%. When I mean like that, I'm doing this. That you are, you're doing this, and this is what you do
I'm
as
taking the
ministry.
lead right now in certain things. So because that's the other thing. And I hope people when they watch this, they get this. Right now, like yes, I'm leading in certain things, but there was a time when I was the pastor's wife. I was the drummer's wife, right? So you have to learn how to shift with what's happening with what God is doing in each of you. You know what I mean? That's so important. It doesn't always have to be the man is always leading because he's still leading. He's just not as public as you may see him. He
Right,
may be
right.
a local ministry, and again, family ministry is the most important ministry. So if you
Amen.
get that twisted, then you got it all twisted. And
Amen.
Yes. Yep.
Nana, duly noted. Okay, duly noted.
Okay.
Take it down a notch, man. I got it. No, no, and you know what? But
it's not for you. It's not for
no,
you.
no, I know it's for
It's for
anyone.
everybody watching because
But even when you
this is
mentioned that,
important.
right? But even when you mentioned that the theology shift, yeah, I caught it right there. I caught it there. But what I'm saying, David, also even with that, the taking care of my family, that this is ministry, I'm at peace with that. I'm not inquieto, like, I gotta be doing this. No, this is what I'm happy here. I'm at peace here, and I'm taking care of my family. And yes, that is ministry.
Yeah, I want to just take a quick note to note the paradoxical nature of the kingdom really fast. Is there's a saying that sometimes it's the people who've been hurt the most are the ones who love the most, right?
Mm,
And then,
Yeah.
so the paradox is that en el dolor tuyo, and that heightened pain that you
mm.
experience, you're bringing so much joy to so many other people. Thank you so much. Hallelujah.
Amen. Yes. I just want to share a couple things. I've so enjoyed listening to the both of you sharing this story from your individual perspectives and as a couple. I love the fact that you have been honest and authentic, and we wouldn't expect anything less from you all, right? But that the journey has been messy because life is messy, right? And going back to something you shared, Hiram, we growing up in this kind of like triumphant sort of theological framework, right? Where, estamos en victoria 24/7 y todo va a estar bien. And to be able to say, nah, sometimes la cosa no están bien. And this ain't going to work out the way we thought, right? Because God's ways are not our ways, God's thoughts are not our thoughts, right? But when we think about the healing process, is it always the external healing that we are seeking and celebrating as opposed to the internal healing that has allowed the two of you to emerge out of that marital crisis and emerge as equal beings, like equal partners, so that you're not threatened by the fact that sometimes Liz is the one bringing home the bacon, so to speak, right? She's out working, she's leading, she's organizing, etc. And then there are other times where, Hiram, you're the one leading, you're the one out there doing your thing, but that there's such security, such friendship, such partnership, and within your marriage that you can challenge the conventional notion of what it means to be a man in a marriage, what it means to be a woman in a marriage, right? You can shatter that notion of what it means to be the caretaker in the family, because that's often prescribed to the women, right? Especially in the Latino culture. And if you're caretaking at home, then you cannot be doing anything else outside, because that is like your role, lo que es aceptable. And I love the fact that you all kind of flip that on its head. One, because of how you've evolved as human beings, right? But also because the circumstances in your family have forced you to revisit these things that we believed this is where we fit in as women, this is where we fit in as men, and within our Latino culture, within our church culture, all these prescriptions that we grew up with. And it's like, you know what? Eso es vaina, right? As my sister-in-law would say, that ain't of God, and that's not going to work here. And I love that you model that for us in your day-to-day journey, that we're in this as equal partners, and we got to come into it as wholly as we can, trusting each other, because how else do you navigate the ongoing circumstances with DJ, where things can change on a dime, right? Like you all can have plans, like Liz often says, DJ has our calendar. So like if DJ decides that he's not going to be feeling good right now and he needs to make a visit to the hospital, well, your trip to Puerto Rico, to New York, that gets sidelined, right? So even that flexibility that you all have to switch things up, but still have your identities, right? Still have your comedy club and you committing to that. Well, that's a ministry too. That's your pulpit. Because laughter is healing for the soul, and we need so much of it during these challenging times, right?
Amen.
And then Liz, that allowing you to move into all that you're doing, right, for the kingdom of God, and helping church planters and being with us in this platform, so that in essence, that mutual support and that confidence you have and that security you have in each other, I think can speak to so many folks where you're not feeling threatened by what you're each accomplishing and the fact that you'll need to switch up at different points, right? So I want us to kind of think about, you've made room for that in tu familia. You've made space for that. And I'm sure it hasn't always been perfect, right? There's been the tensions, you've had to negotiate. But we recognize too that this society and our churches don't often make room for that. And they don't often make room for those of us with special needs in our families. It's as if like, eso es privado. We deal with that, on the down low, privately, but we go out and we have to like engage with the world as they expect us to, right? So I'm wondering, as we challenge, and I do believe that we are challenging the church community today with your journey, your story, your gender roles, right? And the fluidity therein. How do we challenge church and society to be a more welcoming space for individuals with differing abilities? Because DJ is just as valuable as we are. DJ has a story to tell. DJ has an influence on folks that we normally would not have. So I am wondering, what can we do together? It's not just on you all, right? But what can we do as brothers and sisters to really help create more welcoming and inclusive spaces for welcoming every member of the body of Christ? Because at one time, my uncles, DJ would have considered to be possessed by a spirit.
Okay.
There was false, destructive, violent theology that said, we need to pray the spirits out of DJ. Él está poseído. Mis tíos están poseídos. So we have to kind of pray liberation and figure out what you all did wrong, something you alluded to, Liz, that you're now reaping the consequences of esos pecados, right? As opposed to saying, what are the giftings that these pure souls, these silent prophets, these angels unaware, are bringing into our world, into our spaces? So I just want to ask, like, what do you, and this I open up to everyone, but I want to from Hiram and Liz first. Like, what are some ways that we can really increase understanding and really challenge folk to say, yo, if the body of Christ is not open to all fully, then it's not really open to none.
Well, first of all, let me just say that it's having these kind of conversations, because I think most people don't even touch the subject unless there's someone in their family that is differently able, and then they're like, oh, and even then, because even for us, like we when we were pastoring, this wasn't on the forefront of our mind, because if even though we were living it, you know what I mean, we were actually living it, but we would also just be functioning in what the pastors are always doing, that you forget that there's a whole nother group of people that you're not making room for. And it was us that we even have a differently able child, and it was through the process of like evaluating pastoring and who we were making room for, that we started to ask questions, about that, like how do we make room for people like that. And one of them is, as a pastor, you have the opportunity, you have the pulpit, you have the mic, as Hiram would say, I got the mic. So when you got the mic, you got an opportunity and the power to share with the people that are giving of their time to listen to you. So I think, being able to share, first learn yourself, right? Learn yourself about this. What is this theology of disability? Thank the Lord that there's more books on it. Amos Young and a few others have been writing about it. He has a book called God, Disability, and the Church, something like that. And there's just a whole bunch of things that are coming out now. So I think as a pastor, as a leader, don't wait until you have somebody in your family that's impacted by this. If you're pastoring, there's probably somebody in your congregation that has some kind of situation going on, whether it's seen or unseen. Because like I shared at another podcast, I'm deaf from one ear. So you don't know that, and most people won't know that. Not everybody will know that, but I'm deaf from one ear, and I usually don't identify as a person with special needs, but that's because I could get away with it, But there's some people that can't, right? So I think as a pastor, you should care about this community and learn what are some of the challenges, and then how does God see this? Is because we've had this bad theology roaming around, and I think and many people, they still have that bad theology kind of stuck in the roots somewhere. So I think we have to learn about it so that we could preach about it. Because when we were pastoring, there was a couple who didn't want to come to our church because we had a special child, because they felt like, if I'm coming to a church where the pastors have a special child, they must not be connected to the God that I want to serve.
Lord.
Talking about that triumphant theology, right? So and we were like, bye. But at the end of the day, it's like, there you are going to face these kind of things, and you have to not only learn about it yourself. You should want to learn about it yourself, but also teach your people, so that they don't become those people that go out and say, "Oh, I can't be around those people because they have a disabled child," and then also to point people to the resources that are out there. In November, I'm going to be interviewing Pastor Lamar Hardwick. He actually wrote a book on disability and the church. He has a disability himself. And there's another book out as well about the special graces for parents, because when we were pastoring and parenting, we would keep DJ home, so as not to, and even now that we, are doing other things in the community, we would never want to. We felt like we were being a burden if we would bring him to the service, because they would have to find a special location for us. Even when we took him to church, we would have to, take a chair out, because they weren't ready for wheelchairs.
Right. No accommodation.
No accommodations whatsoever, except for what the law makes them do, which is the ramp, right? That's as much as they're going to do because it's required by the law. So, some churches have done like special buddies that help kids that may have ADHD or some other neural differences. So, there's people, that's a great way to utilize people to minister in the church with gifts that they use outside of the church Monday through Friday. So there's a lot of ways to do it. It's that you have to kind of like give a damn, you know. If you give a damn, you'll put the extra effort in to learn a little bit about it, to invite people to share their stories like you have, like others have had. This is the second time we talk about DJ in an official capacity like this. I mean, on my platform, on social media, I talk about it all the time, but this is a little different. So I think, and I'll just share this last thing. We're working with a local pastor here, and he made it a little bit easier for us to get involved, because he's like, I'll have the meeting in your house, you know. So that's another thing. Like, how can we accommodate people? I want you involved, but I know that you don't, you know, like in our case, we don't have a nurse on Saturdays. So that means if you want us there on Saturdays, it's very likely that either only one of us can go or none of us can go. So they made an accommodation. They said, okay, we want them involved. Let's have a meeting in their house instead. So again, you know, kind of giving up your conveniences and your comfort to make availability for people like us to be involved in things. So I'm grateful for pastors like that.
Absolutely. Those accommodations only for DJ, but for the caretakers, right? That so often, if you don't have coverage, you can't go anywhere, right? If we don't have coverage for my uncles at home, our plans have to shift too. We got to switch it up or find someone. And so it definitely impacts, right, what happens. So the onus should not be, what I'm hearing from you is, right, on us to always try to figure out the plan. But I think we have to hold community to task, and our churches to task, to say, well, how can you all accommodate us?
Right.
And maybe we can't go there because the nurse is not here today, but can you come here and we can meet here and we can worship here or plan or, you know, have a party here, right? And enjoy, you know, fellowship.
Belinda, I was
Go ahead,
going to
Orlando.
mention, I got to respond to this because I'm a church planter in the Bronx. We planted a church, and really we planted with my sister-in-law, Delba Jimenez, who mentally challenged, had an accident when she was very young. But from the moment we planted, she was part of our church. And it was just wonderful that, you know, at first she just attended, but then eventually she became more and more part of our hospitality, right? Because she was just so flamboyant. She'd welcome everybody. She started singing happy birthday to everybody. She knew everybody's birthdays. We started a card ministry because of her. So there's the idea that people who have special needs have nothing to offer is a lie. And I think Hiram was sharing about that. And if we're open to the Holy Spirit, there are just wonderful gifts. Our church, she died a few years ago, but our church is lacking hospitality now because she's not with us. And so it's just, I think, just being led by the Holy Spirit and staying open. And it's just amazing what can happen with people who are differently able to have gifts that we're not even aware of. So I just wanted to close out. I think we've run out of time, but Dr. Liz, Hiram, thank you so much for all that you've offered. I feel like we could do another show. There's so much. So I just wanted to close out by thanking you both for being on the program. This is such an important topic. Thank you for introducing us to DJ, or the world to DJ. Hopefully this is something that the church can continually grow in because it's such an important topic. So thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to be here and amongst family. So thank you so much for caring to talk about them.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. And this platform is very important. Appreciate it.